Now, again, I could go through 5 different things about what happened here and demographic and da-da-da. I'll get to all of that. But you've got to look forward and you've got to be positive and you've got to be pragmatic and you've got to be realistic. So I'm going to ask some questions that maybe I don't have the answer to the day after, but I think is the beginning of the conversation that needs to be had about the political vessel under which millions of people voted for yesterday. Number one, I want the Liberal Party to take time to be honest about what happened. I don't want a quick review in and out in a couple of weeks, one press conference. I don't want the people at the front of the movement to think that Labor will eventually drop the ball and the last person standing will one day become the Prime Minister. No, it's going to require a lot more work than that. I'd love to see the Liberal Party have the honesty and openness to not just have one review, but what about multiple reviews? Not just chapters inside the reviews. What about one done by a person under 50 about the issue of under 50? What about suburban, inner suburban ideas? Outer suburban ideas as well, I should say. There should be multiple people of those different flocks who tell us their views of things. Why not invite the living former Prime Ministers, not to make a submission, but to make it public about what they think the future of the movement is? There's no point or purpose in constantly talking about the numbers that came in on Saturday, but they are the reality and the political reality that we will be living with for the next 3 years. I also think that the organisation should look to some elements of the corporate sector here. And you're going to maybe think, oh, a little bit lefty here, Paul. No. There are people who work for massive corporations in this country who are experts in change. And that isn't about diversity quotas, special mentions of this and, everyone humming at the sun at midday. These are people, I should say, who have incredible insights not just into human behaviour but organisational behaviour. And yes, they are not of the political flock, but I think there's an opportunity because at an organisational level, and again, I'll bore you by going through it, but think about it. In New South Wales, they couldn't fill out a form to get the councillors nominated. In Victoria, they couldn't fill out a form to argue the redistributions. There's how many in Western Australia? Queensland's going well at the state level, but clearly at the federal level, we saw what happened. There were seats the Labor Party wouldn't have even privately thought were possible that ended up changing. So there's lots of different areas of expertise, and there are lots of people, and there's millions of people who they are able to reach out to. Not just a conversation inside, quick tick and flick, go on the attack from day one, and we'll eventually tear him down. That's not going to work. Bill Shorten, yes, unsuccessful Labor leader. He talked about how you did fix your party, work on the policy, then turn your attention to an election. That's the sort of stuff that I think this organisation needs to deal with. Number 2, in the 5 things that I think are the insights into the future. Don't just learn a lesson, but be seen to learn a lesson. Now, Australian politics is basically 1/3 Labor, 1/3 Liberal and 1/3 who are voting for something else, the majority of which are preferencing the Labor Party. Whoever the leader or leadership team is, I hope that in the first months after this election, that they go and hold public town halls in every single seat that they lost. Not so people can yell, not so we could, gnash our teeth and get the whip out, but to hear people who were disappointed and went off to the right, disappointed and went off to the left. And no, you don't turn around and say, well, Jenny and Bendigo had this one incredible idea. Let's change everything so Jenny from Bendigo. It's not about that. But slowly but surely, once you have a meeting here and a meeting there and a meeting over there and one back there and one over there and one off to the side, and yes, the press will be there, you'll be able to slowly but surely see, oh, there are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 ideas. And then you put that into the process of an organisation that's serious about change, that's talking to people about change. And I think that that's how you can modernise. I think that's how you reflect the changes in our country. The third one worth talking about here. You've got to meet the people where they are. Now, people who think that politics is about an arm wrestle and it's only two sides and that's it, well, we're not in a Coke and Pepsi world anymore. We're not in a Foster's or VB world. We're in a world when, if you've ever been to a bottle shop, there's a lot of choices out there. And yes, there are two primary ones when it comes to the choice of government right now. But you can't always assume that that's going to be the case. In a place like the UK, the Reform Party at the council elections, and their system's different, it's voluntary voting and it's first past the post. But they got more people elected to more councils across the entire UK than any other party that was running. And they only had just a bare few members of parliament in the federal parliament. Nigel Farage is still part of the Paul Murray Live family, and he'll be back with us sooner rather than later, but he was focused for the past few weeks on a campaign about being a happy warrior. So, again, it's about the people you talk to too. Now, you're going to see a lot of inevitable analysis from people who are commercial or ideological rivals who say, oh, you don't talk to this person, you should only talk to this people. And there's not a strategy of winning that, you know, if you do a weekly appearance on Radio National, everything will be okay. No, you go everywhere. You go everywhere. Whoever the next leader is, they should be on those breakfast TV shows every single week. Whoever the leader is should be offering opinion columns regularly in multiple media outlets, of which 17 people who work for those media outlets could turn around and write the response, but you're still out there. You're still out there talking to maybe even a room where 90% of people may disagree with you. There's also the worlds of social media, non-traditional media, sports media, entertainment media. There's lots of different places to go. FM breakfast radio. And I know that I'm not breaking news that you need to do these things, but you don't need to do these things 3 weeks before an election. You need to do them for the full 3 years to be part of that conversation, no matter how far away you are from power. And also, I think that this idea about meeting people where they are, and this is probably as sharp as I'm going to get tonight, which is it's not about putting voters through purity tests, or the people that you talk to through purity tests. And unless you fully pass, you know, you must be this blue to back us, well, the reality is a third is red, a third is blue, and a third is question mark at the moment. The other thing too about meeting people where they are is that people, generally speaking, they wake up every single day with a smile on their face. The sun comes up and how good is it? Be a happy warrior. Perfect example of that is the great Nigel Farage, who is going to be on the show on Tuesday night. Number 4. Empower the next generation. This does not mean that the Liberal Party has to automatically go, oh, if we run lots of people looking like Gen Z, then Gen Z will vote for us, or the millennials will vote for us. No. One of the coolest things that happened last night was, as I was about to leave the room, it took me about an hour to leave the room because I had these great conversations with young party volunteers, half a dozen here, half a dozen there, half a dozen next to where we were broadcasting. And I hope that those voices are not just the soldiers who go and do, what head office says. I hope that those people feel like they are part of a process where you're able to say, well, my friends say this and my friends say that. Again, not so you just flip and flip and flip, but so you've got real insight. I'd like to see a greater prominence in the policy conversation about the next generation of voices, which does not mean that the current generation or older generations are irrelevant in the conversation. No, 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 no. The coalition of getting yourself to half of the country is that there's lots of different networks that make that up. And one should not have more value than the other. My view is, in this process, if done right, you have an ability to have insight into each of those networks. Respecting the people who have won and done before, taking some risk with the people who think that there might be a different way of doing something every now and then. And finally, most obviously, for the Liberal Party, everything is on the table. Everything is on the table. Whoever the next leader is, I think they should basically stand up as soon as next week and say, OK, reset button, every policy we took to the election gone. We'll decide whether we do or don't recommit to those things. And that's not a conversation about values. That's a conversation about policy. You've got 3 years to have that conversation. And obviously, with people voting early, you have to have the big ideas out early. But everything's on the table. About how to get more people to run and the things that you talk about, the branding, the logo, all of it, everything should be on the table. So again, I say, as one of the millions of people who are disappointed by the result, we continue. Because when we give up is when they truly win.